In November 2021, IRS criminal investigators surrounded a $1 million lake house in Gainesville, Georgia. Inside, they uncovered a Cheetos popcorn tin stashed in a bathroom closet. Hidden inside was a single-board computer containing $3.4 billion in Bitcoin. These coins belonged to Jimmy Zhong, who had stolen them nearly a decade earlier. The strangest part? His victim had thanked him, even sending 5,000 more Bitcoins as a reward. For years, Jimmy lived a lavish life, spending millions to impress women. Then, one careless phone call blew his secret wide open, leading federal agents straight to his door. This is how a single mistake unraveled a $3 billion heist. Jimmy Zhong wasn't like the other kids growing up in Cobb County, Georgia during the 90s. He was smart, brilliant even, but that didn't earn him respect. Instead, he was relentlessly bullied for being, as he put it, fat, ugly, and weird. Jimmy's worst memory came at a school football game, where he was publicly humiliated and pantsed in front of a crowd of students. It was a moment that stuck with him and made him feel less than human. His home life offered no solace either. His parents, first-generation immigrants from China, were too preoccupied with their own struggles to notice Jimmy's. As Jimmy described, his mom worked overnight shifts as a nurse and was never awake. His father drifted between odd jobs, trying to flip cheap items for quick cash, only to retreat to the basement in silence. When they divorced in middle school, any hope of family stability dissolved. Isolated and hurt, Jimmy had no one. No friends, no support, no way to escape the reality that seemed to close in on him from all sides, except for one thing: his computer. By middle school, Jimmy had taught himself programming, languages and algorithms that became his way of controlling an uncontrollable world. Little did he know this digital world would soon make him a billionaire. In 2009, while scrolling through a programming forum, Jimmy stumbled upon Bitcoin, a new kind of currency. At the time, it seemed worthless. He mined hundreds of coins on his laptop daily, only to give up in frustration. But by 2011, when Bitcoin's value skyrocketed to $30 per coin, Jimmy realized he had lost track of a fortune. Desperate to recover his lost wealth, he immersed himself in the wild world of cryptocurrency. One weekend, a new marketplace in a corner of the dark web started gaining popularity: Silk Road. It was a place where anything could be bought: drugs, weapons, you name it. And all transactions were made with Bitcoin. Jimmy Zhong, always glued to his screen, quickly learned of Silk Road's reputation. He began making small drug purchases, but something much bigger was about to happen. One day, while making a routine withdrawal of his Bitcoins, Jimmy made a careless mistake. He accidentally clicked the withdrawal button twice. To his surprise, both transactions went through. Jimmy had just doubled his money thanks to a glitch in the system that no one else had noticed. This wasn't just luck. This was a flaw in the very code of Silk Road. And for someone like Jimmy, who lived and breathed programming, it was a jackpot. Jimmy realized he could take advantage of this bug as much as he wanted. So, on September 19, 2012, at the age of 22, Jimmy created a new account on Silk Road under the alias The Tormentor. He deposited 500 Bitcoins and began exploiting the glitch, withdrawing multiple times within the same second. In one day, he managed to pocket 3,000 Bitcoins, at the time worth around $30,000. But Jimmy wasn't done. Over the next few days, he kept going, withdrawing even more coins. By the time he was finished, he had siphoned off nearly 614,000 Bitcoins, an enormous fortune. But of course, someone was bound to notice. Silk Road's owner, the mysterious Dread Pirate Roberts, reached out. Instead of threatening Jimmy or demanding the stolen Bitcoins back, the pirate simply asked how Jimmy had done it. And when Jimmy explained, Roberts thanked him by sending even more Bitcoins. Jimmy had just pulled off one of the largest Bitcoin heists ever, and instead of facing consequences, he was rewarded. For the next few years, Jimmy lived large. He bought Lamborghini, jet skis, and motorcycles. He rented yachts, chartered private jets, and stayed in the most luxurious hotels. But it wasn't just about the money. Jimmy was searching for something more. He spent thousands trying to impress women, even once getting $700,000 in cash, hoping it would be enough to woo someone. Jimmy had several people around him, and they were all there because he was a generous spender. His only true friend was his dog, Chad. He was repeatedly caught drunk driving, and once, in a bar, he admitted to a girl that he had $30,000 worth of cocaine at home. However, Jimmy didn't know that a cop was sitting at the next table. Jimmy was charged, but not jailed. Once, he rented a private jet, gave his friends $10,000 each to spend on anything they wanted, and flew with them to watch his favorite baseball team play. Jimmy's extravagance could have gone on for years, but just one call brought him out to the open. Jimmy's downfall began on a cold March night in 2019 with a phone call he never should have made. After returning from a week-long trip, he discovered his home had been ransacked. His heart pounded as he fumbled for his phone. Dialing the local police department in Athens, Georgia, Jimmy's voice shook with panic, his words tumbling out too quickly. This wasn't about stolen jewelry or a missing TV. It was bigger, much bigger. When asked how much money was missing, Jimmy hesitated before replying. "Around $400,000, he whispered. "That's a figure you don't often hear in Athens, Georgia." He lost $400,000 in cash and 150 bitcoins, roughly $600,000. Thanks to Jimmy's security system with multiple cameras, the camera showed someone skinny breaking into his home who was suspected to be a friend. Unfortunately, the individual was properly covered and his face wasn't visible. When the local police failed to track down the thief, Jimmy grew desperate. He turned to a private investigator, Robin Martinelli. Jimmy led Robin through his home, showing her where the Bitcoin had been hidden behind the chimney. The stash had been well hidden, known to only a handful of friends. Robin couldn't shake one question, though. What was Jimmy Zhong doing with that much money? Despite repeated askings, Jimmy said he invested the money in real estate and Bitcoin. Months later, Robin received a call that would blow the case wide open. This time, from IRS agents. Jimmy's missing Bitcoin had caught their attention, but they weren't just interested in the theft. These agents were part of a team chasing the source of a massive heist: 50,000 stolen Bitcoins from the notorious dark web marketplace Silk Road. As the IRS dug deeper, they made a shocking discovery. Jimmy Zhong's name was linked to the stolen fortune. One small mistake was all it took. In an attempt to transfer just $800 worth of Bitcoin, Jimmy used an exchange that required him to verify his identity. That tiny transaction led the IRS straight to his door. On a quiet morning, Jimmy received a knock at his door. He opened the door, expecting local police to update him on the robbery. But standing on his doorstep were two men in suits alongside the local police. The men were specialized cryptocurrency investigators, whom he didn't know at the time. As they entered, Jimmy, unaware of their real intentions, guided them through his lavish home. He cracked jokes, even offering them a beer. They nodded politely, their real mission concealed beneath casual conversation. But every step they took, every glance they exchanged, was calculated. They were sizing him up, playing along, and Jimmy was falling for it. Hook, line, and sinker. The agents, playing their part, kept the conversation light, but inside, they knew. They knew about the stolen 50,000 Bitcoins. They knew Jimmy was sitting on a fortune worth over $3 billion, and they were about to prove it. The next day, armed with a search warrant, the IRS returned to Jimmy's house. This time, they were serious. A full team of law enforcement officers descended on the property. They needed access to one thing: Jimmy's laptop. If they could crack it open, the game would be over. Officers found something strange. The officers moved upstairs and searched through the closets. The first sighting was a tin, but there was something unusual about it. At first, it seemed like nothing more than towels stuffed into a popcorn tin, a strange hiding place. But then, they pulled the towels apart to reveal a small single-board computer. It looked like junk, but to the trained eye, this was the prize. They weren't just holding a computer. They were holding a key to billions of dollars in Bitcoin. But the hunt wasn't over. A specially trained dog, capable of sniffing out electronic devices, led investigators to a hidden safe buried beneath the basement floor. Inside, they found physical Bitcoins, precious metals, and old-fashioned cash. They had hit the jackpot. The investigation revealed that Jimmy had used a highly sophisticated money laundering technique called Bitcoin Mixer to make his transaction hard to trace. After more than $3 billion in Bitcoin ended up in the hands of the government, he was sentenced to 1 year in prison. Jimmy had even asked the court to let him serve his time under house arrest so he could care for his elderly dog, Chad. But the judge wasn't swayed. As for the burglary that Jimmy first called the police about, well, the experts at the American Police Department never did catch that thief. Who could have predicted that the quiet boy from Georgia would one day sit on a stolen fortune worth billions? With federal agents, secret safes, and hidden bitcoins tucked inside popcorn tins, his life had become something out of a Hollywood script. But here's the question. If Jimmy hadn't made that one frantic 911 call, would he still be living his high life today, untouched by the law? It's shocking to think. Just one mistake, one phone call, and the empire he built in the shadows crumbled into dust. Did you enjoy this story? Then you must watch our video on how AI would destroy us. You won't believe the shocking revelations.